Hey, what's going on, everybody? Another video here. It's November 2nd, 7:52 p.m. Um, and just going to go over, do another market update video, kind of like what I did last time. I think the last video that I did mainly crypto, though, but I'm going to do some SPX, IWM, VIX, and obviously crypto. So I'm going to get started here on the Russell, and this is the futures chart here, and I have it on the daily. Let me turn off the EMAs and the super trend, clean it up a little bit. So I've shown this chart before, and I've also posted it on Twitter or X. So the dotted lines are squarings, okay? And then I have some support levels and then one resistance there at the 1080. That's coming off the April lows. So you just add like a 360, 720, 1080 to it, and you can get some price levels. Market doesn't have to hit them, but as of right now, they had a couple of them have been hit, and I do believe that Russell will eventually hit 1080, and it's very possible to do it by the end of the year. And following the 5 year cycle, which is in red fractal, uh, it shows that the trajectory is up uh, pretty much after tomorrow. So Monday onward, I do think it's going to be more favorable to be on the long side of the market, or at least looking for longs. It could be plus or minus a few days. It doesn't have to be exact to the fractal, where the turning point is. But we're in that time period now where longs are favored, in my opinion. Um, and then on the dotted lines again, we can see that when price met this in time, a few days after, or even on the day, it was a good buy. Okay, you can just see here a low or a continuation was made after the dotted. Okay, and then the halfway point between the dotteds have been around highs actually, little slowdown periods in this overall uptrend. So I'm gonna have to do another one. Let me do it really quick. So this squaring period was stop. Okay, do nothing. Change that to black. Okay, and here's a 50. So around December 12th, there could be a bit of a slowdown and the uptrend. Maybe. Maybe it happens a little after. Depends. But there we go. Uh, it could be more favorable to be in longs until December 12th. The Russell 2000. That is my forecast for it. Um, yeah, pretty interesting here. Also, market sentiment is pretty ass, and markets are not far away from all-time highs. At least the indices aren't. Um, so really interesting there. But yeah, the trend is up. The Russell right now is respecting the 21 currently, and also the 50 if it gets tested. Um, that's going to be great value. Even a 100, I don't believe the 100 is going to get tested on this thing. Anything's possible. Uh, all EMAs are rising. All right, that's an uptrend. Okay, the super trend is also still green. It is still bullish. For how I look at things, I don't see anything bearish on the Russell. All right, the S&P weekly time frame here. So I have different cycles here. All right, I have a 5 year, 10 year, a 40 year, and then a 60 year. All right, and pretty much all the cycles now are pretty much pointed up. So on the 5 year, yes, a low could come in this week. All right, it could be a little choppy still for another week or so. but the looking for longs is a more favorable thing to do right now. How I'm looking at it. So, when all these are pointed up into the end of the year, I mean, hey, the trend is your friend, and you got this backing it up as well. It just puts extra confluence, with uh, putting the probabilities on your side. All right, risk reward, I believe, is looking quite juicy for the long side. All right, so that's SPX. So really simple there. Um, just putting on the EMAs really quick. I don't want to sound like a perma bull, but stuff is bullish. All the EMAs are still rising. The one thing I could say is maybe it's more choppy because the price action is kind of far away from the 21 weekly, but yeah, it's not really bullish or toppy. Like I don't think a top is in the market at all. I think we're closer to a bottom than a top. All right, let's get into 2026 first and end of the year before trying to call for a top. All right, so that's SPX. All right, the VIX here, I remember going over this in my last video. I was saying that in this green period or green zone, timing zone, was a place to look for longs and risk assets and for VIX to come in with a high potentially going off of the cycle fractals here. Previous like 5, 10, 20, 30 years, so on and so forth. All right. I explained that in my last video. The price came in with a high a week before this period came about, which is fine. All right, good, cool. In this red zone of resistance, and since then it has rejected. And where did this hit? It hit 15. It's 0.7, roughly. All right, and I do believe that if you let's go to a daily time frame, the trajectory is still down in my opinion until December. All right, sometime in December this thing can start coming back up. So until then, it can just be choppy, down. Just typical old VIX doesn't really do much until then. All right, time will tell, but I'm sticking to that forecast or thought process I had idea from before. So the VIX is doing what was spoken about before. All right, now let's get into Bitcoin. Alrighty here. So BTC, this golden box here is support. It's a golden pocket. If BTC comes back into it, I would think it's going to act as support again. If it does break, all right, so if it breaks 106.389, 106.4, it could come close to the 50% here, which is at 100,000.3. As long as that holds, the Bitcoin is in strength, right? Holding above the 50% from the April to the all-time high, April low to all-time high. The 5 and 10-year fractals are pointed up. Bitcoin's deviating from it currently. It doesn't have to always follow it to a T. For the most part, for the year, this year, the 5-year cycle was following pretty decently up until now. So, we're going to see how it goes. But I still believe that Bitcoin is bullish into the end of the year. If I'll go into the weekly time frame on another chart, but higher time frame trend is still up, right? And just right now, Bitcoin's trading in a bit of a range between 115 and 104, 105K. All right. If it gets broken to the downside a little bit, you can pull up the weekly. I think it's the 50 EMA. It's around maybe 100, 102 or something like that. That's been acting as support too for this whole cycle. Yeah, Bitcoin just chopping around near all-time highs. It's how far is it from all-time highs currently? 15%. That Bitcoin could move that in a week. Faster than that, actually. It's just slow times. Price hasn't gone much anywhere, and sentiment is pretty bad. Typical crypto. Right, but yeah, it's at support, and I don't like to be too bearish at support. Sure, there's still possibility for some downside, but no, I don't think too much. Also, Bitcoin is in a opportunity period here in the green zone. All right, ending November 3rd, similar to the Russell 2000. All right, all right. So here's the weekly time frame I have on Bitcoin, and here are the EMAs. So yeah, the 50 EMA has been pretty decent support this whole cycle up, and it's coming in at 101.2 currently. So if Bitcoin touches that, maybe it goes under a little bit, but weekly closures above, uh, hey, the trend is still up. So that's just the EMAs. Let me turn that off really quick. So I have here a form again with geometry, and Michael S. Jenkins actually did this, and I saw it in some of his work that he's done before, and I decided to do it on Bitcoin. All right, if you want to check him out, look him up on YouTube, Michael Jenkins. Um, Excellent. He's very excellent. Okay, so this part of the radius of the circle has been acting as resistance for BTC this whole cycle. Okay, I know there's like crazy targets for like 200K and all that. Maybe it's possible, but when I look at this, uh, I'm just going to stick to you know the pattern that it's been showing this whole cycle. And if Bitcoin comes back up to test this, and um, by the end of the year, around maybe 140s, higher 140s, maybe it goes up past that a little bit like it's done before, maybe 150s. Um, I would think that's an awesome period to take profits. All right, you know what I mean. Okay, so then the diameter of the circle, pretty sure I'm saying it right. Sorry if I'm not. I am a bit of a jackass sometimes. So you could take the length of it and pull out time periods. Okay, and that's what I've done here with the vertical lines. Okay, um, and they've gotten decent turning points or around lows and so on. The next one is coming up in February, and we can see like the past few price has risen into it, or risen into it. So that's coming in February. So perhaps in January there could be a high, or I have here in a red zone, which is correlated to gold, my gold, forecast, if you want to call it, where gold could find a low either at the end of November through the end of December. And this cycle currently, when gold has found lows, maybe Bitcoin finds a top, slows down, gold does its thing, gold slows down, Bitcoin does its thing. So that's what I have there. It's just something interesting I want to put on there. Okay, and then the height of the circle, you can pull up price targets, and we can see it's been fairly respected. It's not exact or to the T. This one here was really decent. And if another extension above, that's around $151,000. All right, so maybe Bitcoin does go to 151K if it can sustain a move on the weekly time frame above 123.8K. Okay, so something interesting there. All right, Ethereum I have here. Um, Let me go to the daily, and I have squarings here. Okay, and then a 5-year cycle in orange. Bit of deviation here too on ETH, but the trajectory is still up into the end of the year. All right, and we can see here that the squarings here from the beginning on the April low, that was a low, obviously, starting point. Then the next squaring was also uh, just before a low. A few days after was red, and then the third squaring was a low, but a continuation point. And now we have a fourth squaring, and we have gotten a little bit of red. It's been more choppy than anything. Um, but if this beginning week of November is a turning point, that's kind of what I'm thinking because the past few squarings shown that it was around, a reversal or a continuation point to more upside. So we'll see how the first week of November here goes. Um, yeah, pretty interesting. There on ETH, and I was on the 4 hour, so it's just stuck in a tight range. You want to be, if you're trading a range, or looking to add to long positions, it's more beneficial to be bullish at the bottom of a range than bearish. Okay, right now it's close to the mid range, no man's land. I wouldn't take any action here. Just gotta wait and see how it plays out. If it accepts above the mid range, then it's likely going to test the top. If it just stays below the mid range, well, bottom of the range becomes more likely. Okay, so that's ETH. I have Solana here. So this is a 5 year cycle on Sol, or like a partial 5 year. It's the beginning, of it was sport. It definitely deviated. So I don't know how much I trust it, but it's potentially Sol could be weak into the end of the year. Other cryptos could be better, but not sure how much I trust it. I'm going to take it off for now, and I'll turn off the EMAs. So what I have here are weekly and monthly levels. All right, just really simple levels of interest. Okay, and then I'm going to go down to the daily just to zoom in more of it. So Solana needs to hold above 174, and if it doesn't, it's going to come down to 155. Okay, that's just how I'm looking at it. All right, as long as it holds above 174, um, I think 249 is possible, but it just takes time, and it needs to break obviously this parallel uh, resistance. Okay, but above 174, all good and dandy. Below it, not so good. I wouldn't like that on Sol. So we're just going to have to see how it plays over this current week. Um, so I'm actually curious what the 3 day looks like because the weekly closure just came in. Yeah, it's definitely possible for Sol to test 174 again. Uh, the 3 day momentum waves are down, and so is stochastic RSI. So, and money flow is coming out too. All right, so if Sol tests 174 again, I will not be surprised. I want to see how it reacts there. Um, like I said, if it gets like daily closures and above on this thing, under this level, 155 could come pretty quick. All right, I don't need to go over circle of EMR. Just like small stuff there. All right, then Dogecoin. I'll come back to that chart. So I'll go to this one. So this is the daily on Dogecoin. The blue is the 5 year cycle. Um, hasn't followed it exactly. It is interesting though. So a turning point for Doge could be again November 4th. Interesting how the IWM has that, and some other charts do too. Everything's confluent with each other. So November 4th could be a turning point, or plus or minus a few days, could be around the turning point in Dogecoin and some other charts. All right, and it's purple. This is again a training range, just like ETH. All right, and Solana, Bitcoin. It's in a training range. It's towards the bottom side of it, and it's more opportunity than not. If it does come down under this range, again, there's still support here. What if the bull run is still on and the bullish cycle continues? This is more opportunity than anything, in my opinion. And if November does end up being bullish, it could be bullish into the end of the month. There's a little peak here on Doge around November 25th on the 5 year cycle. And it does show it could go higher after that, but let's take it, day by day and shorter look on it than trying to go too far out. Right? So, because we're not there yet. All right, another Doge chart here. I have, what the heck? Turn that off. So one interesting thing I noticed here with the EMAs on the daily, the blue is about across the green, which is the 100 crossing the 200. And the past couple times when that has happened, such as the end of March, heading into the beginning of April, um, and then here last year, and close to mid-August, so the one in mid-August, just about, was after a low came in on Doge, the August 5th low. Okay, and then um, the one from April, the low from April, the 100 crossed the 200, beginning of April. So not too far off, in the same week, the low came in, the EMAs crossed. So it's about to do it again. Either, I guess it technically is doing it today, so I guess it will confirm by tomorrow. Um, so we could be coming around a low period on Doge, going off the, little EMA thing I just noticed. It doesn't amount to much. It's only two times it happened before, as far as I looked. But just something interesting. And then if you look at this spider lines, so let me turn off the EMAs and the moon phases. This current cycle so far, each time Doge has traded into or around the orange and black spider lines, it's been an amazing buy. So we're in there again. And if you go to a weekly, it's the same look. When it's coming to this area here, it's been a great buy, and you take it to the higher spider lines if it's going to continue, um, respecting the bull trend. All right, so that's Doge with the spider lines. Now the moon phases. I believe in the next couple days here soon, we're going to get a full moon. Typically, they signal a bullish period for about 14 days, so 2 weeks. Okay, so we got the IWM, coming up to a key period here on the 5-year cycle, and Doge, Bitcoin. You honestly pull it up on a few more charts, and the SPX, VIX is supporting it too, with continued chop on the VIX. Volatility isn't going to go crazy. So risk assets could have a good, decent November. We just have to wait and see how time goes. I have another Doge chart here. Played around with this today. I know there's a lot going on, so let me just explain. Parallel channel, we got support. All right. The October capitulation event, it tested the support to the T there on the wick around 15 cents. All right. Then this black solid trend line going across has been in confluence area, where I have support and resistance. All right. And then we had, this is the Coinbase USD chart, by the way. So Doge's current cycle rejected off the open of this chart. We have a few more levels here too of confluence. They're weekly, monthly levels. And I'm just down on the weekly now. All right. Now, from this starting point, so when this trend line started, right, in hindsight is when, obviously I didn't, you wouldn't know if the trend line would start here back then. All right, but looking back on it, the drawdown to this parallel support was 31%. All right. Another rejection off this trend line, 31% to the low. Another rejection, 44% to the low. It came down and broke through. That was 41% to the low. Another rejection off the trend line, 42%, 33% on the next. And then this one was more, 51%, a little bit of an outlier. But the rest of them had been, 31 or in the lower 40s, mid 40s. So interesting there. Okay. And two times it broke above this trend line. It's went up 91% in the first and 165 in the second. Both were 28 days, okay, to the high. All right. And then from low to a trend line test or a trend line break, the first one was 9 bars, second was 7, 13, 4, 5, 6. I didn't pull an average, but if it's going to do 13 bars, which is the most, that could be coming up in the beginning of January. All right. And then 28 days to a high would be beginning of February, Q1 of 26. If it were to do 9 bars, which is the next biggest, that could be December, beginning of December. And then it would be the high in beginning of January. Okay. So there's something interesting. I was literally just looking at this chart and playing, just doing my thing, what I usually do on the weekend when I have more time. I just go and look at charts, see what I can find, if there's anything interesting. I'm looking to keep this here. If it plays out, amazing. There's something there, right? Overall, I believe risk assets are still bullish, still a bull cycle. All right. Daily on gold. So in my last video, I was talking about how the cycle fractals there I had on at that time. My stuff got reset, so I don't have it right now. Uh, Gold is in a bearish period until the end of November through end of December. Somewhere between that 30-day period is a low being formed on gold, I believe. That's the way I'm going to approach the market based off my analysis. All right, so end of November to end of December, that time period, it would be more beneficial to look for long on gold. Until then, it's I think going to be in a bear trend. Um, do I think an all-time high for a long time was put in on gold? I don't think so. I think it's pretty probable that the trend is still the higher time frame, trend or cycle trend is still bullish gold. Just right now, it's going to slow down and chill out. Sentiment got pretty crazy on it. All right, so the daily chart is in a downtrend, and off the low of October 28th and the high of October 20th, the 50% level is at 41.30, just about. Below that is weakness. If gold breaks under the 28th lows, then I had to take this 50% off and just see where gold's gonna go to the downside to pull another 50%. But currently it's above the 28th lows, so 50% resistance is there. All right, I got two volume profiles here, and I have two high volume areas to the downside where I think gold either by the end of November through end of December is going to be at. So the first one is between 36.57, 36.30. And that's a high interest area. What just happened? Okay, there we go. Cool. And the second one is between 3,400 pretty much to 3,300. If gold trades in these areas, I believe it's great opportunities, either to buy some gold to sit on, or go for longs. But no financial. None of this is not financial advice. Nothing in this video is financial advice. Just my ideas on the market. All right. I'm just a random guy on the internet. Do not listen to me. All right, in that sense. um, so yeah, gold bearish until end of this month through end of December. Um, so yeah, there's not much to add here, honestly. Just want to look at fear and greed really quick. It's at 36. You know, Warren Buffett always said, "Be fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful." This is pretty fearful. It could go more fearful. you just become more greedy. All right, so there's that. And let me just look at my notes really quick, make sure I got everything I wanted to talk about. Gold update, yep. Doge monthly returns. Okay, I can do that. Right. Yeah, so Dogecoin monthly returns here. Um, November is pretty decent. The average is a plus 17% gain. So, yeah, there's more probability that it should close green. October did not, but that's okay. Um, November and December could be pretty positive. Also, January being the best one. We're not there yet, though. We're beginning of November. So, there's Doge monthly returns. A little hopium for all of us. So, there's that. And then I said to go to gold 4 hour with the EMAs. Yeah, they're getting pretty tight here. I expect gold to break under this 200 on the 4 hour. But yeah. All right, guys. Sorry, I'm not. My nose is like destroyed right now. Don't know what is going on. That's why I found feel or sound a bit stuffy because I am. But thank you for if you watch it to the end. Uh, yeah, all in all, I still believe the overall uptrend in equities and crypto is still up. It's just a crappy time period right now. But stuff can kick off pretty quick. All right, and I believe by the end of the year, stuff will be higher than where it's at now. All right, peace out. Thank you. See you in the next one.